Hey guys, Boris here, bringing you another VOD review. With many of the top players preparing for their 4v4 qualifiers in secret as to not spoil any of the tech, and this being the PB, I thought this is a great time to jump in game with other top players who might be perhaps a little less known. Today we're going to be jumping in game with Ramblinnn here, who used to be a pro during the set 6 days for the NA, and this is a game where I managed to queue into him along some other high challenger players. I got run over myself personally, got 5th with some primordial reroll with quite scuffed spot. But Ramblinnn here managed to put up a stellar performance, therefore let's see how he managed to get to that spot. And we are starting out here holding onto these primordial units ourselves, as obviously these are one of our econ engines. The same with the Israel that we're holding on to, but we have this 2-star Poppy with the Fizz, so playing around Meeple is quite potential, and we also have this jeweled gauntlet here as an opportunity for ourselves. Now, Heart of Steel here would be great if he had a slam, but it is only a 2-component start, more of an econ start. However, if we had a Bastion to also pair, this could be a quite appealing option to play for some kind of tempo, but we do not have the secured Meeple opener. Warlord's Honor. If we were definitely locking ourselves into some form of reroll spot, this could be decent. Otherwise, this is going to be delayed value at the moment. And since we have a JG, it's actually potential for us, if we have an AP carry, to potentially go for a streak. And Big Bang is the Meeple, the Meepsie's hero augment. And since we have these Meeple units already, we could actually strongly consider this as an option for ourselves. Let's see what his decision is going to be. Are we going to perhaps maybe scout around? Not exactly. Warp Wave would be a great option if we wanted to be going for some form, if we wanted to decide our direction and then play for a tempo spike on stage 3. Generally would be better if we had a little bit more of the items, as at the moment if we got some form of a AD carry, we might be a little bit trouble since we have this rod, and we would have to potentially start considering some form of a duo AP carry from there. Calculated loss. It's a little tough in these PB lobbies. There's so many players playing around these econ engines that sometimes taking this calculated loss without having secured an econ engine for yourself is going to be quite hard, as you're not going to be given as high of an advantage in the econ, and you will have to be sacking your board quite hard. And since this is PB, I assume he's going to be slamming here that Meepsie hero augment, trying that out himself, as we have a quite decent opener for that. Now, are we going to prioritize making 10 here, or potentially leveling? We could have leveled for this Aatrox just to get a little bit more tankiness on ourselves, but going to value this gold as we're playing into reroll, we're wanting to be spiking quite hard. And it seems that he already has pulled out the board, but I assume this is from the TFT Academy. But this Meepsie here with the Jewel Gauntlet Slam is going to be doing quite good of a work on her own. I believe that I'll just quickly make sure. Yeah, so Jewel Gauntlet here fits quite nicely for Meepsie. You're going to synergize that with Hodge, and then other form of a survivability items such as the Edge of Night is quite good for her. Otherwise, you can be playing for any form of AP item as well. And you can see there's only quite a few players going to pick up a 2-3 can make 20 here, so this is absolutely prime spot for ourselves as we're able to get there. Also, holding on to this Alawi here for the Shepherd eventually is going to be quite good. The Shepherd providing a little more AP into the Meepsie itself. That's why the raw AP items are not as high of a value. But we can see that now we queue into a tempo player that is he's taking a screenshot here. This guy has an absolute insane spot. Has the Ribbon for the Triumbaker, has the Primordial, has Slam It, and is already level 5. Absolutely insane spot from this player right here. Now, for our god selection, yeah, we're going to be going with Yasuo. Obviously, this seems like a more better choice. We can start stacking up our Meepsie here with permanent HP. Getting another rod is going to be quite fine, as we're going to be playing around some form of probable AP duo carries, just taking the same amount of, playing around the same type of damage dealer, so that we can only have to sort out one form of a reduction, right? For us being the shred. Gold is not as appealing since it's a sword. It's half the GA that we want, but we have made so much econ early on that we are fine. We're just taking the Yasuo Hex, which is generally going to... It's quite good. It's going to be great for these... any form of like carry reroll augment, reroll spots. where you are just being able to stack up your units. Getting more power into them is always going to allow them to compete in the later stages of the game. Otherwise, what Yasuo is also not quite good is in these big solo carries, something like Aurelion Sol, obviously, and in general, it's quite strong if you're able to juice up a single unit a lot. Yasuo being very prominent in this space. And we queue in another player that is quite weak, so we're going to be able to pick up a win here. Ending up ourselves already on a 4 streak, so if we're able to close out here on the 5 streak, we're going to be quite good in a good of a spot. And this is going to essentially serve for ourselves as an econ augment. Therefore, we probably can be looking for something that's going to enable us to spike on the stage 3, which generally would be items, or for perhaps a strong combat augment ourselves. Now, from this Meepsie reroll, we were generally wanting to, obviously for any kind of reroll, we want to see if we can potentially roll for other form of a unit as well. And in this current version that is developed, there's only really the pike there. However, you can also potentially consider rolling around together with 1 costs. However, that's going to be a little bit of late value, and if you're playing from a head spot, generally if you're able to just get this Meepsie and then start pushing levels, play around the 4 cost carries, it seems to be a little bit stronger. That's why this hero augment is not in that of a greater spot, as we have not yet found exactly a board that can be played with multiple 2 costs being rerolled that were synergizing amongst each other. Fortunately, our 3 got broken there, so we have lost some of that econ, but we're able to get a Shepherd in now, and then just holding on to this Jax. Jax is a potential unit that we can considering rolling together alongside with. And let's see if he's going to be planning to play around that or is going to be sticking with the cookie cutter version. Jax 3 is actually a very strong tank, especially if you're able to get something like a Crown Guard on him. But as Meepsie here, we can see reason why this Edge of Night is so good. She just jumps in there, and after your frontline unit dies there, she's going to get targeted there. For the Edge of Night is quite valuable for any form of these units that enter into the backline. For our items augment selection here, Hedge Fund is not appealing for ourselves. We're not going to be needing this much gold, and it's going to be quite weak in our spot. 1 buff, 2 buff is not exactly the items we would be looking for. Now this would sort out obviously anti-heal for us and deliberately get a secondary Caroline, but at this point we would want to get 3 item Meepsie as soon as possible. Another option that we can be considering rolling around, I guess, is this Fizz as well here. Fizz could be an option. Prismatic Ticket is quite appealing generally for these reroll comps. However, Trade Tree here is going to provide us with guaranteed form of an item. Tiny but Deadly would be more into something like the Rogue reroll, where you can benefit from that attack speed quite well as you are getting base stats from your trait. And it seems like he's going to be going for that, and we get a Rogue emblem. That's going to be quite nice. That's going to enable that Guardian Angel effect or Edge of Night, sorry, as we know it nowadays, for the Meepsie. And we're going to be rolling here, trying to get the board upgraded, as this is the stage we want to be trying to get our wins. As it's known, the reroll comps tend to sometimes fall back a little bit. Now we're going to be planning around how we can potentially work around our emblems. Something like the Gragas could be quite nice if you're playing around the Spike. Yeah, he already identifies that. Just getting ourselves the psionic item there, and we queued finally into this absolute insane player who has managed to find a radiant BT for themselves as well. That is an absolute incredible spot for the high roll that selection as well. I assume, yeah, we're just going to be ripping the Reforged on the Stargard emblem there. We find another Rogue emblem. And obviously, Rogue being a trade that scales at all the breakpoints, this is just more stats for ourselves. That is absolutely incredible. Now that we have this Rogue emblem, though, we would probably be looking for this last item to transform into a Hodge. So let's see if our God selection offers us a tier that we could be kicking. We can see that Evelyn offers it there. Mana Regen would be nice if you're playing around something like a Karma Duo, as we have in this comp listed there. But this, how would we be killing this sword? I'm not exactly sure. And this could potentially, this is only 3 Tacticians' lives, and since we've had a strong start, we could potentially just use this as another form of an econ. Let's see if he considers that as an option, and potentially we can hit something. And yeah, he's going to be going for that. Picking up the Fizz there as an option is quite nice for ourselves. And now we have some, we either can make a Gunblade for that Fizz to fully try to tempo, or we can save these components for another something like a JG, and then just a BT or whatever that we could be tossing onto this Fizz. Now we find that Talon, that is going to give us 4 rogue. I do not believe the 5 rogue is going to be quite valuable here. Getting that Voyager for the damage up is quite nice. Yeah, we're going to dropping there, getting the psionic item there as well. It's unfortunately the mana generating one, which is not as strong, but they can later on transition on whatever other carry we are looking to be playing around. Currently sitting on 5 Meepsies here, as I'm not exactly sure if we're going to be perhaps playing around something around that as a duo carry in form of the Pike, unless we manage to find them a little bit more of a copies during our roll down there. We have sold that Ilaoi, so we're going to be diverting a little bit from our set game plan. Obviously, this is why the top players are going to... This is just the general skill you have to be. If you take something like... If you're willing to be clicking something like a traitor, you have to be willing to be flexible, and it's quite nice to know to form your trade tree through that, getting familiarizing yourself, especially using these PvE games for that. That's also, we can see why we're probably not holding on to this Aurora at the moment. However, Voyager here would be quite nice. Perhaps just saying that we do not want to be wasting that gold at the moment. We could just be making that up later on. Managed to still 3-streak this stage, so we're in a prime position, but now is the time we'll be looking to try to potentially hit. So I managed to find the poppy tree that we've been carrying around quite a while, so that's going to sort our frontline it for quite a while, especially leaving her here on this side with that bruiser buff, so that when VC jumps in she does not immediately get targeted. Going to sort out our shred there, and now we have pick up also 7 copies of Pike, so we have managed to find some. So are we going to try to invest some items into this guy? We'll have to see. This psionic item is not exactly, again, what we would be looking for him, but going to be holding onto these, not slamming, seeing that we can win this fight, and perhaps our augment can decide our direction there. Empiric Vitality could actually not be quite bad. We are playing from frontline melee comp, that could be quite decent. Getting a damage jump is not bad. Also, since we have a JG, this Meepsie does a chunk in a damage. The overkill is quite nice, and that's a form of magic damage. That's exactly what's fitting our comp. Generally, the AP lines are the ones that tend to have the big bursts, but in this set we actually have something like LeBlanc that does spread damage, so it's not exactly that cry. Here we can see he's evaluating if that charge transfer is going to be valuable. Electro charge would be more if you have like a beefier frontline. We're not playing exactly into that, and he seems to love this option. We did not need exactly more econ. And we have sorted items ourselves in that way, but now that we're 1-off, we're going to be rolling there and finally pick up that Meepsie tree. And are still 1-off Pike, which we could assume, since we have not committed exactly the items for him, we're going to be simply trying to push levels from this spot and hopefully able to pick him up along the way as we go. So since we haven't picked up also that many of the Fizz copies and do not have the items for him right away, as we would want to be sorting out 3-item tank at this point as well. We're not going to be rolling for that, so also sold that there, but going to be holding on to these Pike copies and pushing from here into a Zaya player. Has 6 Zayas there, level 9, has the cashed out that savings account, which from the gold start is also obviously going to be quite strong. Dropping down to 1 life, they have 7 Zayas. You're gonna see the reason why I'm saying this is this later bond, but hitting that our god selection there. A 2-star forecast. Now, are we in a position to be sacrificing it? I believe that this chain vest could transition to something like Bramble, but we would obviously have to scout if the lobby is going to be primarily AD to be taking that, and the 2-star forecast could either use it as the econ engine or hope that we can find some form of a carry. Otherwise, this dealing bonus magic damage is quite strong, especially since we have that charge transfer. Getting that on Meepsie is going to be very strong. But and it sorts anti-heal for ourselves, which is another bonus there. Oh no, sorry, this one is only the burn, this is not the wound. But do we have an option to use this rod? Now, something like a Crown Guard could be a decent slam, wouldn't exactly lock us into the Bramble West. And yeah, he's going to agree that this is a very strong of an option for ourselves, just juicing our unit up even more so. But now we have to evaluate. Yeah, so he seems that he's going to be taking the value of it. Also, we can see his interesting position here, trying to spread these hexes around in that way that we are not fully attacking from one side, and we can kind of feel free to sometimes give up the full combat power on the Meepsie and just switch positions if that's going to be favored our fights. Obviously the downside with these Yasuo hexes is that it's able to there. But you can see this Meepsie absolutely chunking, and with the charge transfer just pretty much obliterating everything along its path, having that 5 Rogan, and that's giving her even more base stats. So we can see just absolutely how insane of a comp this is. And the reason why I was talking about Xayah, since I was in this game, I know guy on 2 lives hitting a Xayah 3 because he managed to pick up a nice win into the round before, and now he's getting secured there. Into the Mech ASOL board. Now this is a board that Meepsie might have a little troubles, but since we just absolutely jumped on this ASOL, we are done. The reason I'm saying is that she's doing the AoE damage, right? And there's 2 situations that can happen. Either the units are going to be clumped around the mech, then you're going to be fine. But if they position nicely so that you're able to spread while still preventing wraps, she could be losing a little bit of a value there. Going to be committing IE to this pike here and trying to fish for potential more components, but it is most likely going to just be an Archangels that we slam on this bard. As I don't think the Rage Blade on this pike would make much sense. Okay, we are going with the Rage Blade. That's an interesting thing to know. It's allowing us to transition the mana generating item onto the bard, which hopefully is able to print this a little bit copies, otherwise just providing more power to this Meepsie there. And I would assume that we would be transitioning it to 5 Maple either on this level or onto the level 9, but we are in obviously a spot to be pushing. Now that we have found this Riven, obviously keeping the 5 Rogan is going to be quite worth it, that is. And yeah, at this point, I do not think we can go for a first unless we find a way to absolutely just jump on the Xayah 3 with these resets. But we can still play for an extremely strong placement, and then now we are queuing into the absolute tempo player. This Riven is putting up a fight, however we still just simply have an absolute insane power into the Meepsie there. We can see the potential of this unit to scale so high, obviously fully juiced up by these emblems, but very strong nonetheless. Going to be queuing into the anima reroll that has not exactly seemed to hit just yet. Still sitting on that Ilaoi 2, which is going to be a little bit of a doom at this point in the stage, dropping them down to a single life. Also not having that Diana 3 there is costing them dearly. For our last item here, we could be considering again transitioning off to this Rage Blade. Yeah, going to be doing that. Getting the Striker's Flail, getting the damage amp, and synergy with crit. Still have not managed to find the Pike 3, but that's probably because we have not exactly rolled. Going to be just simply moving to level 9 here, but we can see that he valued simply the Taunkench there with, since we have this HP lead, we can be sacrificing perhaps a little bit of a board power in favor for getting some juice into our board right now. Do not exactly need this extra item, as it's not going to be that strong onto the bard that already has a Rage Blade. He does not exactly have the raw form of an AP in himself. Now we're into the Xayah player, but we are on the opposite side now, and they have also picked up a Graves through, so they have insane potential. We can see this Meepsie just getting obliterated by the Xayah feathers coming back in, even through this rogue reset. So we are not going to be as strong to deal with them. Some of these forecasts, when they have this insane amount of burst, there's simply absolutely nothing you can do. Well, something like a Master Yi, it actually can be taken down if you have a burst in your own form. Find the last Xayah that's left in the pool from the dragon, but obviously that's a little too late. Going to be slotting in a Voyager just to get it some shield, get a little bit of an extra power for ourselves. Now that we find the Pike 3 as well, and this is going to be essentially the last fight that matters, and we can somehow this anima player has made it out. Perhaps a little favorable matchmaking for them, but our Meepsie just jumps on their Aurora and we're able to secure a win here. And let's see if we are able to put up any form of a fashionable fight against this Xayah player. Going to be also transitioning our items onto the talent tree, that is. Going for a last second swap, and interesting, but he opted to just simply move the fall of the black line back, but Meepsie just gets bursted by the Zaya in this form of a way without even getting a jump off. Interesting what his game plan is here. Not going to be trying with the full front line, but I'm still skeptical if you're able to do really anything against him. Going on the other side now this time as well. She's going to be jumping in there. She does kill the weak units off, but then the Zaya burst comes out, so this game is going to be over from this point. But we can see how well he played from tempo, identifying that this is something, this is a skill that you're going to be able to take away, especially when the set drops, that there's going to be a lot of players playing around the econ engine. So if you're in a spot with something like a slam that you can play around, you can definitely try to play for a streak and go from a spot from there. There we managed to quite early pick up the... not exactly quite early, but managed to pick up on pace the Meepsie tree, also holding out the potential for the Pike tree, and managed to secure our front line here with this Poppy tree, which actually put in a lot of work. If you look here, obviously we're running 5 rogues, that's the reason why we're not playing around this Rambus now, but otherwise our front line could have been quite weak in the mid game, which is the place where we want to be the strongest. So we played our tempo quite well, troops also selecting the Trey tree with the nighttime augment, and then found a nice combat augment to synergize with ourselves, and picking up the hexes to further juice up these reroll comps so that they can compete into the late game against these 4 and 5 cost boards. I would like to thank you for watching. I hope that you learned something new, and I wish to see you in the next one. Have a good one.